Welcome to Bottom Boom. I'm Chris. On this episode, we're reviewing No One Will Save You, a new Hulu movie that surprises you in the sense that, oh wow, there are good movies still being made, but they're hidden on a streaming service. So to review it, I've brought on Mike, who is probably the person I trust the most when it comes to movie opinions, because even when something's objectively good, he hates it. So, Mike, welcome.
I'm here to hate.
Thank you. Because I'm here to love. I actually, I really love the movie. I'll just start with that. For you, what did you think about it?
I thought it was very good. I didn't love it. I thought there were a few things that could have been better. Overall, I thought the movie was probably originally like a script for like an anthology series. Something that's like an hour long, and it got stretched into a feature. But overall, I thought it was very good.
It's funny you say script because there is probably about 5 lines of dialogue in the whole movie. So I don't think the script was something that was kind of put together. It was like when I watched the movie, I kind of went in blind. I'd heard a lot of things about it on Twitter. I didn't watch a trailer. I just saw the poster. I was like, all right, let me watch this. And I told you to watch it so that we could talk about it. And I watched it. It does have that, like that Twilight Zone, that anthology feel, but I do think it's very character driven. So it really does justify itself. And also, I thought it was just long enough. I think an hour and a half. I think it's its runtime. It felt good. I think a lot of these movies could sometimes get bloated, and despite being only an hour and a half, it does fit a lot into it. And before we kind of get into that, there is going to be a spoiler warning because we're going to dive in pretty deep into certain aspects of the movie. Just to kind of, I think it is important to be able to talk about it. For me, especially being that I like the way the story unravels and kind of like it almost feels like and then it starts off pretty small and then turns into a really big um, kind of finale and ending. Um, but yeah, like in terms of like the issues you had with it, like what were some of them? Because for me, I thought it was pretty like clean, straightforward. The ending to me kind of went like kind of crazy, but I think it was in line with what it was building towards.
Let's just start off by saying that it's very difficult to talk about this movie without spoiling it. It's actually one of those movies that I would recommend going into completely blind, like I did. Like you said, you just told me, you just texted me and said, "Hey, hey, this is supposedly really good. Watch it." And I did. I didn't watch any trailers. All I saw was just the title on Hulu, and I just started watching it. And that's the perfect way to watch it because I had basically no idea what it was going into it. So I would highly recommend everyone do that.
Now that we've kind of put that disclaimer, let's start with explaining what the movie kind of starts out as, and then we could kind of get into it. Just so that we could kind of really lay out what it's about, even though it isn't that complicated.
Ultimately, it's a movie about a woman overcoming her trauma. She has a very traumatic event that happens to her when she's little, and it causes her to become a social outcast in her community. Everyone in her community hates her. And when I say hate her, I mean like the spit in your face type of hate. And it's not revealed until very late into the movie what it is that she did that caused her the trauma. And I kind of wish it hadn't been revealed because the thing that she actually did was just kind of like, oh, like it was kind of stupid. Like I kind of wish they hadn't shown us what happened. Like it's pretty obvious that something really bad happened, and when they show you what actually happened, it's just kind of like, well, funny enough, they beat you over the head with it, and that was one of those things I didn't like. But that's ultimately what the movie is. It's about a woman who overcomes her trauma and rejoins her new community because what the movie is her journey to right the wrongs of the past, but also aliens, and that's pretty much the movie in a nutshell.
Yeah, and the also aliens part is interesting to me because when it starts, it feels very contained. It almost feels like signs, like you literally see the those circles popping up and stuff like that, and the creature design looks very traditional, like what people usually think of aliens. So you're watching it and you're like, all right, like this is just gonna like it's an hour and a half. it's a Hulu movie. It's gonna all like be in one location. And then she gets out of the house, and then you're like, oh wait, this is turning into an invasion movie. And then the community gets into it, and as you said, they really hate her. It's quite literally spit in the face. She gets spat in the face in the movie, which I didn't expect. So there's more spit in the movie than actual dialogue. And what I liked about it, and I think your criticism is fair, because that was probably one of the parts I didn't like as much either, because if you beat someone, if you throw a rock at someone's head at close range, I think you deserve the vitriol you get.
Yeah.
I was thinking like, oh, like it was probably like a car accident. They got drunk or
Yes.
something, like
Yes,
something
exactly. That's
like.
exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
And I think on some level it went left to kind of, I guess, to keep you on your toes. But I do think that was the. I think the reason it kind of feels weird is because it's probably the only indulgent part of the movie, because it doesn't go into any details. You don't know where Brynn, who's the main character, like where her family is. Obviously she has no friends. The town hates her so bad, even her like dropping off a package in a mailbox, she doesn't fully get out of her car. And she hides
I
from
also I don't
certain
know if you
people.
caught the fact that her mailbox is all busted up. I caught that little detail as she was going out to
Yeah.
get the package. It's all like busted up. So there's these little hints, these little breadcrumbs that are left throughout the movie to show you that the community hates her, and you can kind of get that sense without even them just straight up telling you that the community hates her. So that's one of the things that I really liked about the film, was just the ambiguity, and I wish that ambiguity, that thread of ambiguity, had been kept throughout the whole film. They didn't need to just directly tell you what happened, because we kind of had it like you said. Oh, she drove drunk with her friend or something, like she killed her friend and the community hates her. We didn't really need the scene of seeing what actually happened. And overall, just even the ambiguous nature of what the aliens are trying to do, like you kind of have a general idea of what they're doing, but it's not like explicitly stated what's going on. And again, talking about the ending, like why do they let Brynn survive? Like why do they let her keep her personality? Because the aliens in this film are like invasion of the body snatcher aliens. They have like parasites inside of them that they transfer to new hosts. And I actually like that aspect of it as well, that the Greys, I think, are also victims of the parasite. I think the parasite is the actual like alien species, and the Greys are like one of their past victims that they're using to now to take control of humanity. And the reason I think that they let Brynn keep her like free will is because, one, she manages to kill a bunch of them. She manages to kill that first one by accident, then she blows up another one with her with the car. So I think that it's that aspect of it, and the fact that she actually rejected when the parasite, when they inject her with the parasite, she like rejects the perfect world that they're creating for her in her mind, and she actually like pulls the parasite out of her mouth. So I personally think that it was like a matter of respect, that they actually respect her will, and they let her like be herself in this new world that they create. And that kind of completes her journey as well, because her journey, she starts off as this social outcast, and then by the end of it she overcomes her trauma and becomes a part of this wonderful new community that the aliens have created on Earth. So there's a lot going on. It's a very simple film on the surface, like, oh, it's a girl and there's aliens and she runs away from them, and then eventually they take over the world. But there's a lot more going on, and that's something that I appreciate, because this could have very well have been just that opening sequence where she's in the house and that first alien is like chasing her. That alone could have been the film. It could have just been a siege movie where she's just trying to outmaneuver this psychic alien that's trying to track her through her house, and that would have been fine. But they went that extra step and layered on a few more things that to me made the movie a lot more interesting.
Yeah, it manages to be a full invasion movie. I thought they were kind of going to keep it contained in that house. I was like, all right, this is going to be, you're next with aliens. But it manages to kind of get much bigger, and it's interesting because as things are happening, I'm like, how is this gonna end? Is she gonna kill all the aliens? Because it keeps like upping the ante. The aliens get bigger, the types of creatures, and she's able to survive and get through it. And you're almost questioning, like, oh my god, where is this going? is this, and then when it kind of goes back and forth between sort of some dream sequences and flashbacks, you do question what's real, because the reality is the real part of it, you're questioning it because you're like, wait, how did this girl who clearly lives alone and doesn't really go out or anything like that is managing to survive and get through these things. And it's one of the few times where like the title really kind of means something in the script, because as what I liked, as she got out of the house and you're kind of doing the horror movie thing, all right, go to town, go to the cops, go to this, do that. Really, no one will save her. Like, hey, this is a full-on invasion movie. This is not like that one alien you killed in your house. So I really like the way it kind of kept me on my toes a bit. And the reason I recommended it to you, in the last few years, there's movies like Barbarian, The Menu, that have really sort of they're the worst movies in some ways, because you can't really recommend it to people without spoiling it. But they're the best because if you go in blind without seeing anything or reading anything outside of that, they're great. It's a really great experience. And for me, I just it was one of those movies where I was like, I didn't quite think I'd love to see it in the theaters, because I felt like putting my headphones on and experiencing it that way was the best experience.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would not recommend watching this in the theaters with someone munching popcorn behind you. Like one of the things that I also enjoyed was the sound design, not the music. I thought the music was very meh, very generic, but the sound design, especially during that siege sequence in the beginning where she's being stalked in the house by just the one alien. And when he starts using his telepathic abilities, like just the sound of him throwing stuff around the house is like it's like concussive. So it's it feels like it almost feels like you're there. So I can imagine watching this in a theater full of people who are like either screaming or talking or on their phone or whatever. It wouldn't be a very good experience. I would say actually the best way to experience this would be to in the home, turn the lights off, turn the volume up. That's the best way to experience it for sure.
One of my favorite parts, now that you bring up the telekinesis part, when the door like slammed in her
Yes,
face.
yes, yeah, that was great.
Like, because the movie doesn't have any dialogue, it kind of it has to infuse humor in that way. I don't know if it was meant to be funny, but I
There
had a
was
good
there was
laugh at
there was
that
a lot
door.
of unintentional comedy. Like when the alien at the beginning starts, because when he first enters the house, they show that he can kind of like stand on his tippy toes and move silently. I thought that was a really cool detail. But then when it actually starts running like across the hardwood floor, it sounds like almost a dog or like a little kid running. That I laughed out loud. When it first ran across that hardwood floor with the little tippy taps, I laughed
Yeah.
out loud. I don't know if that was intentionally, but that was supposed to be funny, but I definitely laughed. So there is a little bit of that as well. And it has, and because it's basically a silent film, the dialogue is so limited, it really does almost feel like it should be in black and white. It has that very sort of old style feeling to it. And because of that, I also think I want to praise Kaitlyn Dever's performance as Brynn, because she doesn't say anything basically throughout the whole film, so she has to constantly like emote, and she does a really good job. I actually felt like I could feel what she was feeling without her constantly having to explain it. So very good job on the casting on that one.
No, she was amazing, which again, it does feel like a silent film. And the black and white thing, I love the way they use color, especially like the light when it comes in from the spaceship. You have the blue light, then the reds, and they really kind of like play with that too. Especially like towards the end, there's like literally so much color, like when she's looking at the stars, or when you see that new world that they've created, kind of how it has a 1950s vibe.
Like super
Um,
saturated.
Exactly. So, shout out to, Brian Duffield who wrote it and directed it, because I feel like it's one of those movies that, I'm gonna watch some interviews, and, I would love to one day like kind of talk to him about it, because it does feel like a movie where the writer and director had to be the same person. Because some of the ideas and the way they're conveyed, I don't know if you could really kind of like go to a screenwriter and be like, hey, this is the way it needs to be done, or kind of I love the way it was executed in that way, because um, there's so many like cool ideas, and he was able to kind of like fit so much into what feels like a small movie.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, in terms of like little odds and ends that I appreciated, it was very well shot. That was definitely one of the highlights. They definitely did a very good job of moving around, that little house and making it feel big. Because we spend a very long time inside that house, and it doesn't get boring. It's constantly changing because of the damage that's being done to it. She's constantly like moving around. It's a pretty big house. So that was really nice. I like the fact that the aliens have physical variety. Like some of them are really big, some of them are really small, some of them are like thralls that they don't even have like the telepathic abilities. I also like the fact that this is a little also, speaking of, we mentioned earlier that the movie beats you over the head a couple of times. I like the fact that she literally kills her old self. Usually in movies where the main character undergoes a transformation, the death of the old self is figurative. In this film, she literally kills her old self because the aliens clone her, and she manages to kill that copy of her. So it's very it doesn't it's not figurative at all. It's very literal what's going on, which again I'm not the biggest fan of, but when it's that over the top, I enjoy it. So I enjoyed that aspect of it as well. And to talk about the ending a little bit, I actually think the ending works very well because at the beginning she's an alien to the she herself is an alien to the people in the town because she's so hated by them. She has no interaction with them whatsoever. And then by the end, when all the humans of the town have been assimilated by the aliens, that's her new family now. That's her new community, and now she's found a community in this new world that the aliens have created. So in a way, it's actually a happy ending. Not necessarily for the people of the town, but definitely for her.
Well, you shouldn't spit on people, so I think they got what
Yeah,
they
they
deserve.
deserved it. They deserved it.
Yeah, and what's interesting is I feel like in some ways that was foreshadowed when she kills that first alien. When she accidentally kills it and they're like locking eyes, you could almost feel like, hey, I killed someone, not like a thing. And almost like the aliens looking back, like, hey, I wasn't gonna hurt you. Like there's this interaction, and I feel like, as I've seen the movie, as we're talking about it, it feels like that like piece was so like momentous one because again, it was really well directed, the sound, the performances, and all that. So it feels really impactful. And then, when you think back on it, you're like, that sort of conveys what happens at the end when she's in the ship and they're all trying to see what's in her head, and they decide like, okay, she could live as herself.
I can totally imagine a lot of people being unhappy with the ending, but that's just because they don't understand what the movie is really about. It's not really about an alien invasion. Like I said, it's about a woman overcoming her trauma, which she does, and that to me makes it a complete story, which is what a story should be.
Would you recommend it? What are you giving it on a scale of 1 to 10?
Oh, I would absolutely recommend it. If you're into, I mean, if you're into Independence Day type alien movies, then no, I would not recommend it. If you're into like Arrival, or not the Charlie Sheen Arrival, the newer one with Forrest Whitaker. If you're into that type of alien movie, then yes, this is definitely for you. This one's a little on the more like obvious side. It's not like Annihilation where it's super cerebral or esoteric. Like this one's a little more straightforward. But I think if you're a fan of the more subdued, this isn't really an artsy movie because it's not, again, it's not very like I said, it's not very esoteric. It's very easy to understand. So if you're into that type of stuff, if you're into like the kind of small scale horror, this is definitely a movie for you. What about you? What do you think?
For me, to use an old term, two thumbs up. For me, I like these movies that I don't really get to experiment too much with movies ever since I became a dad. So anytime I can watch a movie that there's no trailer that I've seen. There's really no. I haven't looked at the plot synopsis and stuff like that, and it's able to kind of give me something I've never really have. Obviously, like there are some elements that you see. There's nothing really kind of you've never seen before, but I think what they were able to do and kind of bring it was definitely something that felt like new in a lot of ways. and kind of makes you feel good about like the future, as where people, filmmakers and writers are still able to kind of explore genres like sci-fi and horror and still deliver something like really unique. So for me, it's definitely a recommend. It's one of those things where, slowly, like through, whatever Disney's doing, they're like, hey, like, let's use Hulu as a dumping ground for, 20th century movies. But somehow they've been great. Prey was amazing. I loved that last year, and to get this has been something great. So I think they're kicking off the fall really well. I don't know how it would have done in theaters, but I would have liked to see it sort of make some money and surprise people that way, because I think horror definitely does really well. But I am glad to see that it's found um, an audience online, which is very unique on platforms like Hulu. Usually these kind of things blow up on like a Netflix or something like that. So I'm glad to see, really original and great storytelling find that audience. So for me, it's a recommend. And yeah, so No One Will Save You. Go see it. It's on Hulu right now. October is about to start. Hulu has their Huluween, so there's going to be a lot of content, including I think they're bringing back a Werewolf by Night in color. So check them out because they're going to have a bunch of stuff there. So with that,
Bada
bada boom.
boom.